On today's show, the Denver Nuggets get one of their best wins of the season, if not the single most impressive win of the season. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into the Locked On Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. We're also presented today by, let me take a look. I think it's FanDuel. Yes, sir. It is by FanDuel. This is, if you want to gamble along with the Nuggets for the rest of the season, take the odds on them to win the title. They're telling you something, people, with a big win over the Cleveland Cavaliers, the number one defense in the NBA. And the Nuggets just carved them up, especially that starting lineup, something we've seen consistently all year, but maybe never in as much as we saw it in this one, or as encouraging as we saw it. Matt Moore has the day off today. It's just going to be me, and I'm going to do a shorter end episode here as we learn, as I go to the notebook and kind of share some of these notebooks. I just published a new edition of the list up at thednvr.com that has 5 different videos of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. So if you're a follower of our work, of my work over there on the written side, you're going to want to check that out. But let's get started by going into some of these notes. The first note I have on here, and this one actually is a video clip, or it's part of a video clip, is that Jokic and Murray really do share a brain. They've been doing this for so long together and have so many reps, and they're both so talented that they get in these moments where they can look at each other. They don't even have to look at each other. It's really just more about they're both reading the court at the same time, and they're both not making mistakes. So it's not a like, hey, I gesture, you cut this way, go that way. It's defense is playing you this way. Then I know Jokic does this. Murray knows Jokic is going to do that. Jokic knows Murray's going to see it, and they just both read it. And early on, there was this post up for Jokic with Jared Allen, and he tries to 3/4 front it, meaning he's trying, rather than play from behind in the post, he's trying to get around him. Well, as soon as he does that, Murray knows that Jokic is not going to try to wait for the over-the-top pass against a really tall and lengthy defender. Instead, what he's going to do is he's going to turn it into a ball screen. Just basically use Jared Allen's aggressiveness against him and then just start screening Jared Allen. And the reason is Murray will see that, and Murray will just drive. Rather than give the post entry, he'll just drive. And the on-ball defender is expecting that if there's a screen, there's going to be somebody showing. Because Jared Allen jumped out of position, Jokic just screens Jared Allen. The defender hops behind Murray, thinking he's going to chase around a screen, and Murray walks right up for a little wide open scoop layup. Plays like that are so indicative of how Jokic and Murray get more out of each other. Like Jokic is a 10 on offense. Murray is a 9.5 on offense. Together, they somehow make a 30. It's like 10 plus 9.5 equals 30 because they become greater than the sum of their parts. Unlike most players, to be honest with you, where it's like there's a little redundancy, so we kind of lose a little bit. It's the opposite for the Nuggets and the opposite for Murray and Jokic in particular, where it becomes actually harder to guard them together than it does to guard each of them individually. There was also this other one a little bit later where Allen overplayed Jokic, and the two of them just read it so perfectly to get another like give and go opportunity for them both to score. Just those two guys, again, you don't have to blink, you don't have to nudge, they just know. Another thing that was so encouraging about this game was Michael Porter Jr.'s driving. And I've talked about this for a while, but in this game, there was 4 or 5 examples you could point to where he catches the ball. I mean, first of all, he took 10 threes. So this isn't a matter of him like overdoing this. He knows that his bread and butter is 3-point shooting, catch and shoot 3-point shooting, and going up quick. So he catches it. If he has any daylight, he goes up with it. But if a player is selling out to run him off the line, you want there to be a penalty for that. You want him to be able to punish the defense. And in this game, he had 4 or 5 drives that weren't necessarily spectacular and like, oh, he shot fake, gets to the rim, power dunks it or whatever. But they were things that turned a small advantage, a defense having to sell out to run you off the line, into a bigger advantage, collapsing the defense and then hitting the kick out or setting forth a chain of reactions that leads to a bigger advantage. And I think that this is an underrated aspect of Porter's game. And one of the things when I talk about in the playoffs, what things can you count on and what things can you not? Porter, I don't know if you can count on this in the playoffs, but if you can, Denver's unguardable. It really is the last rail. Like KCP, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter, they all can do the basics. But once you start getting, and we've seen this with Aaron Gordon, how he's really learned how to like duck in on the mismatches and play the dunker spot, offensive rebound, all those little things. KCP can come off the curl and go up. He can catch and shoot. He reads the court. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. He reads the court as well as anyone. But also, if he has to, he can run pick and roll and make basic reads out of it. This is the equivalent of that for Michael Porter. Phenomenal cutter, phenomenal three-point shooter. But can you do something when a team overplays those things? Can you make the basic drive and kick reads or drive and finishes at the rim? And Porter, as his athleticism has come back, has gotten so much better that I think he's at an all-time high at this specific skill. And this game was a great example of it. He had multiple plays, again, weren't spectacular, didn't make the highlight reel, but they were like, yep, that's how you punish a team when they overplay running you off the line. The Cavs in this game, especially early on, were running an empty corner a lot. An empty corner means they're running pick and roll on one side of the court, but they'll put all of the other Cavs players on the other side so that there's no help coming from the ball screens from the strong side. Everybody will be on the weak side. And this can be really hard to guard if you're not good at pick and roll. And Denver playing Jokic up early in this game was getting beat a lot on that specific action. They made the adjustment. Actually, in the first quarter, they ran it out of a timeout. And then in the second half, they ran it consistently, where they instead do something that Denver doesn't love to do, which is drop Jokic and pick and roll a little bit more. When a team's running that empty side corner and you can drop on it, one, it makes it a little bit easier to collapse on the roller, and it gives less space for the driver because he's driving into 3 help side players instead of 2. So you're a little bit less concerned about Jokic's ability to play up, or to drop down and protect the rim because he can sell out a little bit harder on it. And it was a good adjustment. And it just kind of goes to show you these things are so important because the empty side pick and roll is going to be a thing I promise you teams are going to run to in the playoffs. And Denver's ability to adjust quickly is going to be key. This was not a good defensive game for Jokic. It wasn't a good defensive game for the Nuggets, but it was at least nice to see that they have things in their pocket that's like, we know what to do here. Whether or not we sell out and execute is one thing. A lot of questions we had coming out of the All-Star break. How hard is Denver going to play, in this first game, especially defensively? And I think we saw that they played very connected, very efficiently and effectively, and with great chemistry. I don't think the defensive intensity was what you would hope for coming out of the All-Star break. Maybe that turning that dial is going to take a little bit of time, or maybe they just, had a bad night. I don't know. We'll see. But of all the positives that came out, the defensive effectiveness was not one of those positives that you would point to. And some of this was, to be honest with you, Mobley was on fire. I mean, he hit a couple threes. I think he's shooting 19% or something on the year, and he hit a couple threes. So some of this is regression, but, guys like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland missed some wide open threes at the end of the game. So maybe it all evened out. KCP's brain works really fast. When we talk about why is he such a good fit on this Nuggets roster, so much of what you do is about read and react, read and react into the court. On defense, his brain is working fast. This is part of why he's so good at drawing fouls off of screens and stuff, is he sees when a guy is out of position and he immediately reacts to it or puts him in position. This is true with his hands. This is true on help side, but it's more or equally, if not as true or more true on the offensive end. There was this play in the first quarter, I believe, where it's in transition. There's no play being run. There's just when Nuggets run a transition, there's like step-up screens. When Jokic has the ball, there's 2 or 3 different ways you can screen for him or cut that are just like, hey, just go to that. It's not a play. You wouldn't say they're running something. You're just saying read the court. KCP had a great one early on where he steps up and runs that inverted pick and roll. So it'd be a 2-5 pick and roll with Jokic handling the ball. But he knows he's not trying to set a screen for Jokic. He's not going to lay wood on, Mobley or Jared Allen. He's too little for that. He'll get run over and he'll probably wear himself down. So instead he sets the screen and then steps it just long enough that the guard defender steps up to show so Jokic doesn't use the screen and go to the basket. But then he escapes, not rolling to the basket, but sprinting all the way to the opposite side wing. And it created in short order a show and the most distance that would have to be covered. And Jokic doesn't miss these. He sees exactly what's happening. KCP read the court perfectly and quickly. And Jokic threw him a nice pass for a wide open 3 that he, of course, knocked down because he went 4-4 from 3. But things like that, when Jokic says he's always in the right spot, when he's talking about Pope, and he's like, Pope, he always is in the right spot. This is what he's talking about. Being in the right spot is both knowing where the right spots are and reacting to them quickly, like in real time. And KCP is so good at that exact skill, and it's one of the reasons he fits in offensively so nicely. I mean, yes, he's shooting the ball well. I know a lot of people wonder, like, is Denver's offense this good, or are they just shooting well? a little bit of they're just shooting well, but I think they're a great shooting team. And more important than anything, you're going to be a great shooter when you're always in the right place and the entire team is reading in the right place. If you just stand still in an empty gym, these guys make 70% of their threes. They're as close to gym level attempts, empty gym, because they're all in rhythm and they all know exactly. Like KCP, when he set that screen and started to slip, the moment he saw the defender step up, he knew he was going to get a wide open three. So mentally, you have this ability to be like, I need to prepare because I'm 1 second away from receiving a pass. And that makes it so much easier, that rhythm and that anticipation. And KCP is one of the guys that is as good as anyone at reading the court. Jared Allen got 2 fouls early on. Jokic's ability and the team's ability to make players foul is underrated. I know Jokic doesn't get to the line as much on shooting fouls as we'd like, but the Denver's ability to make teams not want to switch and have to fight through things and scramble, it just puts him in position to foul a lot. And the fact that he got 2, it's the reason, or one of the main reasons, Denver was able to open up a 10-point lead early on. It's funny because I don't know what the numbers are. Mobley had a fantastic game, but on rewatch, the moments where Mobley was on, but Jared Allen was off and Jokic was on, Denver was actually murdering them on the other end of the court. So Mobley had some great moments, but I had actually bet that Denver was in the positive in those minutes just because of how punishing, like no one can guard Jokic one-on-one, not even Joel Embiid, as we saw the other day. You have to have some kind of 2 big combo to be able to guard him. And the moment Jared Allen had to come out is the moment Denver opened up this game. And then Michael Malone, my one negative note, we can get into this in the second quarter. I didn't love the rotation. This is the first time seeing it. I didn't love Denver going to the 3-guard lineup. I want to talk about that on the other side a little bit and why it is that I'm a little, I don't want to say concerned, but I'm curious if this is what we're going to go to. Nissan's Most Electric Player of the Week is brought to you by the all-new 2023 Nissan Ariya. Yes, Ariya, you heard that right, just like Game of Thrones character that we all love. I get to choose now, when we have this read, the Most Electric Player of the Week. And since there was only one game here, I'm going to go with the Most Electric Player of this last game. And that to me was none other than Michael Porter Jr. I haven't even got to the great parts of him yet. 6 of 10 from the field. He was unbelievable. Would you say he had an electric game? I would. 6 threes, including some clutch ones in the fourth. Would you say he was brilliantly fierce? I don't know if I ever described Michael Porter as fierce necessarily, but you know what? I will say he was elegant. He played powerfully, and all of these different things. Am I talking about Michael Porter Jr. or am I talking about the perfect electric SUV crossover? Well, I'm talking about both. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin you to your seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. We'll be right back with Locked On Nuggets. Here in the chat, somebody tells me, just a reminder, lineups without Jamal Murray and Bones Highland, but with Jokic are plus 20 per cleaning the glass. Look, man, all lineups are great with Jokic. I mean, almost every single one. And there is something to regular season. I think that's a really meaningful number. I've always said this. Murray elevates the team's ceiling, but their floor doesn't necessarily fall off without him. You put a bunch of guys, like the more you take Murray off and replace him with KCP and Bruce Brown as your backcourt, the more a team relies on Jokic. And in the regular season, that's a good thing because Jokic is just like a perfect player in those moments. In the postseason, the ceiling is more important because teams will start to game plan and take away and figure out where your weakest link is. And with Murray on the court, especially with the starting lineup that they have, there is no weakness for Denver offensively. I really mean that. At least I'll say this. I haven't seen one. Maybe a team conjures up some crazy zone or something that, like, okay, it gives them fits. But so far, teams have tried a bunch of different things with Denver and nothing works. This is why this game was so meaningful. Denver went in on the road, missing a key starter, by the way, a key offensive player in Aaron Gordon, and they put up just a monster offensive performance against the number one defense. People should be taking notes. Nobody has stopped this. Nobody has figured out this Denver Nuggets offense in the regular season yet. And I'm curious to see if that's just the thing that holds all the way through the playoffs. If so, Denver is winning a championship. I talked about how I did not love the rotation. So this is the first Reggie Jackson game. Reggie Jackson came in with the starters with Jamal Murray and Bruce Brown. 3-guard lineup, all small. I mean, who's the power forward in our small forward in that? I guess it's Bruce Brown. Again, I've talked about this a lot. I don't like Brown as a forward. I just don't think he's necessarily impactful, especially when you're talking about such a big team. So how much of this was because Vlatko Čančar started and then Jeff Green had to come in? Like, Is there a little bit of a ripple effect to the rotation, or does Malone want to get to this 3-guard lineup with Jokic? I just think it's a waste. When you have Jokic, length is honestly the only length and shooting are the variables that matter the most. If you give him guards are ball handlers, they run pick and roll. Jokic can do that with anybody. He does it with KCP. He can do it with Christian Brown. So giving him 3 of them just becomes a redundancy that I don't love, and I didn't like the look of that. So I'm curious to see if Michael Malone is just experimenting here and we see a different rotation going forward. My hunch is that Malone just loves playing these small ball lineups with all these guards, and I'm a little concerned about it. Christian Brown was struggling on both ends in this game. He didn't play very many minutes, and he was pulled basically in the second half, and I think rightfully so. Defensively, there's some archetypes now about who Christian Brown guards well and who he doesn't. Garland and Donovan Mitchell are 2 of the quickest guards in the NBA. I don't think Christian Brown is necessarily great against those super speedy players. I think he's better against more like technical players, guys that use a lot of footwork because he's so disciplined and he's so big. A Devin Booker, I think he might be better against than, say, a Donovan Mitchell. Whether whoever's better as a player, they're close enough that you can compare them and say, I think Christian Brown is going to be more effective against the footwork type, shot-making type than against the speedy type. And he just struggled in this one. And I think furthermore, playing him again, you got Reggie and you got Bruce. So now Christian Brown is going to play small forward. And he just didn't do a very good job defensively in this one. Offensively, he's always going to be hot or cold. And in this game, he wasn't very impactful. I don't think you read anything into it just yet, other than to say when the trade happened or when Reggie was signed, you started to look at it and say, okay, who's cut out of the rotation? Is it just Christian Brown constantly playing small forward, or is it going to be like Vlatko Čančar or Jeff Green? You look at that and say, I don't know that Christian Brown is going to be put in the best position if he's playing with that unit, but we'll see. We'll see. The second unit scored on an offensive rebound. They scored in transition, and they scored on a couple of miracle shot making from Jeff Green and obviously the full quarter from Reggie Jackson. When you go back and watch all of the possessions that the bench unit scored on, none of them are encouraging because it was not like, oh, they can go back to that. And I'll say this, I think watching the game, the coaching staff put together a buffet of plays, simple plays, nothing complex because you didn't have enough practice time, but they ran some pick and roll, they ran some ISO, they ran some post up, they ran some 5 out. And I almost feel like they were just collecting data. They were like, hey, we're going to run 5 of these, 5 of this, 5 of that, 5 of this. And let's just track them. Let's see what happens. And then we'll build a playbook off of that, or we'll kind of go from there. So I think in this game, the second unit, we knew they were going to look bad. I talked about this yesterday on Locked On. I anticipated that they'll look bad tomorrow against Memphis, Sunday against the Clippers, and maybe even against the Houston Rockets. They'll get a chance to practice next Thursday in Denver. They'll get an opportunity to practice, and I imagine that they'll go through a lot of like, okay, here's what we're going to try to do. So I say all that to say that give this bench unit 2 weeks before you start to make any kind of proclamations one way or the other. I thought they did okay from a plus-minus standpoint, but again, I think a lot of this was just, we don't know what this unit is. They don't know what it is. I mean, Thomas Bryant barely touched the ball in this game, and I think they need to find plays for him or spots for him where he's a higher up on the option board. But it's just going to be ugly. And based on what I saw yesterday, I think that's probably going to continue. And there probably will be a game they lose sometime in the next, week or two. There'll probably be at least one game where they lose solely because of how bad the bench was. I just think it's a possibility. The only concern I have about an all bench lineup, Reggie, Bruce, Christian, Vlatko eventually, and then you're going to go with who else is going to be on the court there? Oh, and then Thomas Bryant. None of those guys are great shooters other than Vlatko. And you saw that in this last game. There's not a lot of spacing for this team. And that's the one thing where I think you're going to get to a stagger. In the second half, they went with KCP. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw KCP and MPJ stagger a little bit just to kind of keep a continuity of shooting, of a mix of talents on the court. Denver's going to have to figure out what it is. They might play with things right now as they get to know everybody, but going into the playoffs, the last 10 games of the season, I hope Denver finds whatever it is going to be their playoff rotation and gives it a shot so that you're not relying on something crazy in the postseason. And then I just have another note in here about how bad Jokic's interior defense was. It was really bad in this game, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, some of it was this is a tough team to guard with all the length that they had, but some of it was like Jokic in help, and he just didn't rotate over when it was so obvious and slow. Like he was so slow to react to like, oh, Garland turned the corner on a pick and roll. I need to get over here and show. And he just didn't. And Garland would get a wide open layup. And you're thinking, Yoke, man, you got the defensive intensity I was expecting for the post All-Star time to turn it on wasn't there. And if you want one concerning thing, it's what we saw from Jokic in this last game is probably not going to cut it in the playoffs. So of all the great things that happened, that dial still turned too far down, on those types of things. Denver's ability to turn a made basket into a fast break is one of the most underrated aspects of them. I talk a lot about how Murray walks the ball up. Well, when Jokic is on the court and he receives the inbound, there was this great play. I can't remember who it was, scores a layup. Jokic tips the ball to whoever's out of bounds already, gets the inbound, sprints it up. And because of that, it was 9 seconds from when the ball made it into the basket for the Cavs, and the Nuggets got an and one for Vlatko Čančar on the other end. And it was because Jokic getting the ball out quickly and sprinting it up the court forced the Cavs to mismatch in transition. Donovan Mitchell had to pick up Vlatko Čančar. And Vlatko did a good job, by the way, of sprinting to the corner. As soon as the play was over, he didn't jog back on defense. He sprinted back. And because of that, after a made basket, Donovan Mitchell had to pick up Vlatko Čančar in transition. Jokic brings the ball up. So what are we going to do? We're going to run an inverted side pick and roll. So on the right side, Vlatko Čančar steps up, and now you have Mobley guarding Jokic full court, bringing the ball up. That's his spot. As good of a defender as he is, he doesn't have a lot of reps doing that because not that many teams do it. And then you have Donovan Mitchell, who's guarding a screener in pick and roll, which, again, he doesn't have a lot of reps on because he's rarely guarding a guard. Usually if a guard's setting a screen, it's on another guard, and you just switch it. But when it's a big, he has to step up and show. Vlatko knows all of this. So not only does Denver sprint the ball up court, not only does Vlatko get to the corner to force the mismatch, he knows now that I have it, I'm going to set the step-up screen, but then I'm going to slip early. So as soon as Donovan Mitchell shows to cut off the Jokic from driving to the basket, Vlatko slips, Jokic throws it over the top because he's so much taller. And by the way, I put this as a video on the list. Jokic, people on video can see me that are watching this on YouTube. I'll try to describe it for the people listening to this in their cars or as a podcast. But Jokic grabs the ball. Jokic grabs the ball, and he goes up, left, down, up, right, over to throw it. And you see Jared Allen trying with his hands to shadow and take away the passing lanes. And Jokic never just most bigs, they just throw it, right? Straight pass. They've only got this. Jokic's ability to throw it at any angle keeps Jared Allen basically guessing where it's going to go, and he fakes it and then whips it around his arms for a perfect pinpoint pass that gets an and one. It was 9 seconds from the time the ball went into one hoop and went in the other one, and that's on a made basket. It won't count as a transition point. It's too far into the shot clock, but it was made by good transition play by the Nuggets running the ball up the court, and I just loved it. I have another video of this up on the list. MPJ's favorite action. MPJ has gotten so good at reading the court. Early in his career, I don't think Michael Porter read the court very well at all. He did have a good nose for the ball. So offensive rebounds, cuts, things like that were good, but they were individual. It wasn't like, oh, me and this guy are working together on the weak side to accentuate the gravity, and then I do this. It was just like, okay, here's an angle. I'm going to squeeze in here and grab a ball or get open. But now he's reading things, and the one he loves more than anything is the weak side flare. So if Jokic has the ball in the elbow or in the post, you can spot up and just stand there and say, here I am. Or you can try to run an exchange where the two players change. And what you're trying to do is make the help side change roles. If you're one guy in help side, I got a full on help. If you're another guy, I've got to help the helper. If you run an exchange or if you set a screen, it makes it especially tough because then you have to communicate a switch while also switching help side assignments. Porter has gotten really good at the flare screen off of those, and he holds it just long enough until either the defenders switch, the guy he's screening and the guy who was guarding him, who switch, and then he slips, or the guy he's screening tries to go over the screen, not under it, over it, and when he does, he slips that one too. And Jokic reads it every time. Aaron Gordon gets this one a lot. Jeff Green gets this one a lot. Back in the day, Wilson Chandler got this one a lot. This is a play that experienced players know. And Porter has, over time, seen everybody doing this and gotten good at it himself, that now I swear it's happening. It might happen once a game. And this isn't a play. This is read and react basketball. When you watch the Warriors play and the ball's popping and their offense is circling around and the defense is running, this is what's happening is they go from one of those to the other, and it's just like bang, 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 bang. The Nuggets have never been to the level they are right now of all five guys making these types of reads. A lot of credit to Porter. This is basically his third healthy season in the NBA, and he is playing like more of a veteran than ever before on this specific type of stuff. And given how much gravity he has as a scorer, and given how tall he is, and you don't want to just switch off-ball screens with him because you don't want Darius Garland having to guard Michael Porter. He'll grab rebounds, he'll shoot over him, all this different stuff. It just takes the Nuggets offense to an entire other level that I think is incredible. So kudos to Michael Porter. He's reading the court on the offensive end at an all-time high and seems to be growing in that way as well. There was a weird play in this game in the third quarter that I absolutely hated. Donovan Mitchell gets a take foul on Michael Porter, who was in the act of shooting. They rule it a take foul, and they only give Denver one shot because it's not a shooting foul, it's a take foul. So it's one shot in the ball, but Michael Porter clearly had a layup. So by giving the take foul, it was actually advantageous to the Cavs. This is what I hate about the NBA and how it's officiated. Rules are there. There's a spirit of a rule. The take foul was invented because you don't want teams taking away easy points, but this is exactly what it did, and they were rewarded for it. So I think it was a glitch. I don't think Donovan Mitchell was thinking, oh, if I do, I think he was trying not to give a take foul, but somehow in doing so, the letter of the law led to Denver losing a point that they should have gotten off of that play. Really, really weird stuff. And then the Nuggets in that third quarter, although they were playing well for stretches, they reached their lowest point halfway through the third quarter, call a timeout. And Jamal Murray, who I thought had a B- game, maybe C+, like it wasn't the best game, mostly because he didn't make his shots. I thought his energy was good. I thought his passing was very good. I thought I'll give him B- because it really wasn't a bad game. But shooting wise, he made 2 threes in the first quarter, and then he only made 1 the rest of the game. I think it was in the fourth quarter. So he was missing some of his good looks. But I will say, in this third quarter sequence, when the Nuggets most needed to, it was 7-8 points, it was like, oh my God, is this going to get out of control? We were in the danger zone. Jamal Murray came up huge 3-4 times in a row with big time shots, big time playmaking, drives to the basket, little post shimmy where he gets a layup. He was phenomenal at the exact right moment when Denver needed it, and it came in big. Take a little break here to tell you guys about Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all of the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. How's everybody's New Year's resolutions doing? We're at that spot, February 24th, almost 2 months in, where some people start to bow out. I'm telling you, don't bow out. Built Bar makes it easy. You grab a little bar on the go, and they've got all these flavors, and they're low carb, they're good for you. They've got all that stuff, and they come in those great flavors. My favorite, I've been saying this for years, it's churro, but peanut butter brownie and coconut almond are also up there. That's actually, and it's funny that this is on the read because churro is my number 1, coconut almond's my number 2, and peanut butter brownie is good. So those are 3 of my absolute favorites. And I'm not sure how they do it. They taste like a candy bar. This is true. The churro one actually tastes like a churro. I'm not lying to you. The churro one tastes like you're eating a churro. That's how good it is. But yet it only has 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. You can get yours at built.com. That's built.com. Now you can also get them at the local Walmart or Sam's Club. So what do you know? They're making it out of the online order place and now somewhere you can go if you like shopping in a physical location. I don't personally, but maybe you do. You can pick them up at Sam's Club or Walmart or go to built.com. All right, we'll be back after this break with more Locked On Nuggets. All right, looking at the chat. Sorry, guys, whenever I do the solo, I don't have a chance to read the chat. So as these chats are coming in, I see a lot of people hanging out here on the YouTube show, and I apologize for not being able to be more interactive, but there's too many things going on when I'm doing the solo. Matt Moore's off for the week, but he will be back next week, and we'll be back to the regular one. Rounding this out, one of the best wins of the season for the Denver Nuggets, if not the best win. It honestly might be the best win when you just consider that was a fully healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team, and Denver just scored on them so easily. Let's get to the fourth quarter. Christian Brown came in at the end of the third quarter and got scored on one and one. Like, they brought him in for defense, and he gives up an and one layup. Talk about the lowest thing you must feel. And you could see he kind of had this smirk on him like, man, I'm getting cooked today. And he was. That's the trials and tribulations of a rookie. Sometimes you go out there and you're not good, and you just can't, you can't match up and you can't hang. And I think he was, it's a learning curve for him. I know Christian Brown, I think he's a winning player. So, these are, when you get the win, it's sometimes good for your rookie to struggle. So it's like, keeps him hungry. But he got cut from the rotation in the second half, rightfully so. And KCP comes in, provides that extra amount of spacing without losing any defense. In fact, KCP a much better defender against quick guards than Christian Brown is. And he comes in and immediately hits a transition three that was enormous. The bench could not score. He took a shot that to me would have been ill-advised if he wasn't 4 for 4 from the three-point line on the day. So he takes a transition three and knocks it down, and it was so huge. Let's get to the fourth quarter and the clutch time, because the bench unit continued to struggle even with KCP. He hit that shot, but it was ugly still. So Michael Malone calls Jokic's number. He puts him back out there. He played 34-plus minutes in this game. You put him back on the court to carry the bench. And what do you know? Jokic fixes everything. This is what's so funny. We talk about the stagger. I know a lot of people have been on this. Why not just stagger Jokic? I still, like nights like last night, I think it's the right move. You have a chance to win a game, then you stagger him. I don't think you build. There's a difference between using Jokic as a savior and becoming dependent on him. And I think if you had to do this every game where it's like, Jokic, we need you to go out there and save those guys, it's a losing game. You got to figure something else out. But this was a winnable game and a winnable moment. Michael Malone called Jokic's number about 2 minutes earlier than typical, or maybe 1 minute earlier than typical, and it made all the difference in the game. One of the first plays, and I broke this down, it was my play of the game. Jokic gets in the post. KCP is spacing him. You got somebody in the dunker and two guys on the weak side from the three-point line. Defense comes and doubles one pass away. It's the dumbest way you can double Jokic. You need to be on point with your other rotations. Cleveland was not. Jokic waited for it, passes it back to KCP, who's wide open, had time to take a breath and shoot the three, and he knocks it down. What you love about Jokic is he files everything away throughout the game. What makes a great player great is whether consciously, or I actually think it's mostly subconsciously. This is why Jokic hates answering these questions. This is the way I play, by the way, for the most part. You're not sitting there. Sometimes you are saying, oh, okay, I know they're helping in this way. But a lot of it is you just feel it. Like you're reading where the help's coming from. But the timing, the subtleties, those are all intuitive because you've worked on them. You've studied them, and you have good pattern recognition. Jokic, the best pattern recognition player in the entire NBA. So I don't think he's filing it away, literally saying, okay. I think he's filing that the help is coming from here and the backside rotation was late. And I'll bet you that if if it were me, would be noticing we got to be quicker next time we run this one. So he files it away. This is at the 8-minute mark, by the way. Jokic also has this move. So file that away. We'll come back to it. Jokic has this one move where he dribbles when a big is pressuring him. And Jared Allen is a mobile big, but Jokic offensively is super mobile. He's not mobile defensively, but offensively is. When a player's pressuring him, Jokic has a move he goes to where he dribbles right, goes behind the back, and then goes left. And the move is less about beating someone off the dribble and more about a big is thinking, I got to chest Jokic. I got to stop this drive. He's going to go right, and I'm going to chest him. And it's almost like a fake power move that goes into finesse. And whenever you do that, a player thinks power, they try to meet you with the body, and then you go around him, and it's a foul. Jokic did a beautiful one on Jared Allen. And Jared Allen, he's one of my favorite players. You could just see the look on his face of damn, this dude's killing, what do I do? I just misread it. Jokic is always ahead of whatever the defense is trying to do. There was another great defensive sequence from KCP. When I talk about his brain work so fast, this is a great one. He's guarding Darius Garland, one of the shiftiest players in the NBA. He sticks with him. And then there's a switch where Jokic has to contest the shot. He steps back, Jokic contests it, but he does a good job of keeping him away from the rim. And the moment that he goes into a shot and Jokic contests, most players would also run out. How often do you see two players run out at the same guy on a shot? Shot goes up, nobody inside for the offensive rebound, and the big just dumps it in. Or nobody in to box out, and so it's an easy dump. What happened in this one was he stopped him from going to the rim, and in 1/10 of a second, he sees Jokic is going to jump off to contest the shot, and without any hesitation, he goes to block out, or what's called peels back to block out, I think it was Jared Allen, on the rebound. And he grabs the rebound because Jokic's contest forced an air ball, and KCP's peel put him in position to grab the rebound, and it was huge. It was a perfect bang-bang sequence where he went from guarding Garland to boxing out Allen with no hesitation, no loss. It's a guy that reads the court. His brain, I say this, KCP's brain works as fast as anyone. As fast as anyone, and that's such an important trait for basketball. And then Michael Porter Jr. is even reading the chaos of free and flow basketball. So I talk about okay, on the weak side, Jokic posting up, I set a flare and then I slip. Even though that's free flow, it's a little more scripted, but Porter is even just reading the like micro movements better. And there was one where he got a corner three off of a perfect, like he saw how the court was bending and he ends up getting like a little screen and then he flares off of it. Just again, not a play call, not a recurring action. Just he read the court and he got to his spot, set a screen that caused the defense to jump. I think it was on Murray. Murray throws a little toss pass to him in the corner and he hits it. And it was a huge, huge shot, all created from great read and react basketball from Michael Porter. He also had a great coast to coast in this game, which we haven't seen a lot of those from Porter. I think he's underrated in how good his touch is on those types of shots because it doesn't always look pretty. Like you think about coast to coast with Darius Garland or Kyrie Irving, they almost always look pretty and they look smooth. Porter's kind of look awkward just because he's such a stiff player, but he's so good. His touch is so good. The fact that he's willing to travel through coast to coast through traffic and finish at the rim like that, to me, tells me he's feeling healthy and confident, and you love to see it. And then I just love this late game one. So I mentioned earlier, file it away, one pass away, Jokic makes the read to KCP. Late in the game, with about 2 minutes to go, coming out of a timeout, the Cavs put Mobley on Jamal Murray. And the reason they did that was because Denver had been running the two-man game and just a little bit down the stretch, and they were getting baskets out of it. And everybody knows Denver's going to go to the two-man game in the clutch. Well, if you put Mobley, who can guard Murray one-on-one a little bit because he's a great defender and he's so long, he's a really good mobile defender. Murray's great at cooking bigs, but even that one is like, hey, we'll live with it. If you're the Cavs, you'll live with it. But Denver's so smart. They run and rather than just run a screen roll and then have Mobley switch onto him, they say, nope, let's just get Jokic in the post. So now Mobley's going to have to be out on the perimeter. Well, where do they put him? They put Murray one pass away, and they put Jokic in the post. And now you have the exact same setup. You've got, I believe it was Chanchar in the dunker spot, and you have KCP and then Michael Porter as your two floor spacers. So your three best shooters are on the perimeter with Murray closest, one pass away, Vlatko Chanchar in the dunker. Jokic filing away from earlier, the help is coming one pass away, and also filing away that the rotation from the help was late and is probably going to be locked in coming out of this timeout. He does the smart thing, and the video of this is so beautiful. He drags towards the baseline, the help, so the help has to come the furthest. And he could have probably given it to Jokic a little bit quicker, or to Murray right away, but I don't think Murray would have had a great shot, and the position would have either been make or miss on a semi-difficult three-pointer. So instead, Jokic drags Mobley the furthest he has to come from Murray, knowing that the rotation is going to be a little bit quicker coming over to Murray, and he does this great thing where he fakes this way to draw Mobley even further away, splits the two defenders to get to the middle of the paint, and then kicks it to KCP, who kicks it to Michael Porter, who hits what's basically a dagger. Now, here's why it's important that he went there. The play calls for, he could have gotten it to Murray, who would have got it to KCP and got it to Michael Porter. And in that time, the backside, who's now sitting on this action because Denver had been getting buckets out of it, and now we're in the clutch, everybody's dialed in. 3 passes, and the defense might scramble, switch. Everybody kind of switches and then closes out, and you might have something. Jokic, by sucking the defense as far away as possible, splitting the defender and bypassing Murray to get it straight to KCP, he skipped one chain in the sequence, and it's just bang, bang to Michael Porter, and Michael Porter had plenty of time. If you go back and watch the play, if you just envision an extra pass, however long it takes, a half second for that extra pass, the closeout would have been a half a second closer, and maybe the difference between him making it or missing it, or maybe the difference between him just pump faking and driving, and now you have to count on that. Jokic read that perfectly. The setup called back to a play from 6 minutes prior, and it was just a subtle reason of why Jokic is the GOAT offensive player, is because he knows exactly what he's doing. It was an incredible play, and it was a great win for the Denver Nuggets. Really impressive one, and I think they've got 2 big games coming up. Memphis is the number 3 defense, so you beat the number 1 defense on the road without Aaron Gordon. I suspect you'll be without Aaron Gordon for this one. By the way, Memphis is now 6 games back. They're 5 in the loss column, but 6 games back from Denver. If you win tomorrow night, I'll go ahead and say that Denver's odds are almost assured of winning the 1 seed. They have 2 matchups against Memphis in the next week. They really only need one of them. But if you win tomorrow and go up 7 games with 20 left to go, would it be 21 left to go? I mean, if it were an election, they'd be calling it. They'd be calling it. So tomorrow night's game carries a lot of significance. You can really send the Grizzlies into a bad place. And you could make a statement that just says, hey, little 2-game road trip against 2 of the best teams in the NBA. You win both of them. That would be an impressive one. And I'll tell you what, I would not at all be surprised if Denver did it. This is a hell of a team that is playing connected offensive basketball right now, and it's really a joy to see. That does it for today, guys. Thanks for hanging with me here in the chat. Again, sorry I couldn't follow along in the comments. I'll try to take a look at it later on, but hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see if I can get an episode in after Saturday's game. I'm not so sure I'll be able to, but we'll try. We'll make an effort, and if not, Matt Moore will be back with me on Monday. We'll see everybody then.